Evening, I'm Billy. I'm an alcoholic. Welcome, everyone. Um, we will quickly start with the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So, welcome, everyone. Thank you for understanding. Next week, we may shuffle watch in the Facebook group. We may shuffle a few of the future weeks because of a guest or two that was asked to come. But tonight we're on District Chapter 2, the district and the district committee member. So I would tell you, I try not to preach, but if there's one thing I preach about the service manual is that it's not a description of how we do business in every area and every district. That there are nuances and differences all over. Nowhere probably more than the chapter on the district. We have so many different variations across the country and Canada of how districts work. Even the wording is confusing in today's world. The district and its district committee member. Well, what are they a member of? Are they a member of the district committee? Or is that an old reference for the district committee member, meaning a member of the district who's a member of the area committee? There's a million different variations. And I'm going to try to slowly walk everybody through just things to keep in general. If you notice in the book, which is incredible, it's like 3 pages about the district. Duties and responsibilities, members of a district committee, qualifications for D.C.M. So we should start out here. If you happen to run into somebody who is involved in service in the 90s, the 80s, maybe the 70s, there's some questions you should ask them about the structure now and the structure then. Most of the people that I know or talk to who are involved in service, whether I talk to them currently or I have in the past, have all told me that one of the things they've noticed over the years is the districts have become less empowered to really do their job as the kind of central geographic local boots on the ground doing AA service work for that geographic area, or it could be linguistic. Now, that's even a challenge because if you read the chapter, it says there's 2 kinds of districts, geographic and linguistic. That's a real liberal use of the words 2 kinds. There are virtual districts now in a couple of places. They're not mentioned there. There are groups that are virtual that belong to non-virtual districts. I know that's a real play on words and extremely confusing. There are also different types, or I hate to say type, but we have some places in the country. I live in a county that is 2,200 square miles, the largest county by land in Florida. It's one district, District 8. Now, inside our structure, there are multiple what we call sub-districts inside our District 8. However, just keep that over here as example 1. A huge district with a lot of sub-districts. But those sub-districts don't have their own meetings. And they don't have their own committees. Those sub-districts gather at the district meeting. And all they really do is elect a D.C.M. for the geographic area that that sub-district covers. But that sub-district does not have its own PI committee or own corrections committee or own CPC committee. There are other areas where a district is the size of a sub-district, like where I live. And that district has its own meetings, even though it's small, and has a corrections person and a PI person. Now, if we put geographic territory off to the side, the other big thing that's completely not the same across the US and Canada is how many groups per district. So now we're away from miles and we're looking at groups. The point I want to get across here is I don't know what the perfect one is. I'm not sure I run into anyone who wants to tell anybody else what the perfect example is. But you have to make sure that whatever you have is working in 2025. There are other areas that we have the term DCMC, District Committee Member Chair. Now, in my area, we call the chair of District 8 the district chair. We don't use the D.C.M acronym, but in a lot of other places, they use the D.C.M acronym. Then we have places that have a county structure in between the district and the area, where the county may get together with a county D.C.M, often a D.C.M.C. As you can see, this is awfully confusing. You have to have your area, whatever you call it, handbook, guidelines. Your area has something to explain it to you how your area works. But I'll go back to the point I just made. Does it really matter which structure you have if the one you currently have doesn't work? If the one you currently have doesn't work, there's nothing that says it has to stay that way. Now, we can add on to this an overarching another piece of confusion. Let's say you're a district in a pretty big metropolitan area, and you have a corrections chair and a public information chair and a cooperation with professional community chair and a treatment chair, just to name a few. But let's say you at least have them. And you have a treasurer for the district. You might even have a secretary for the district. Some districts even have district registrars. In Area 15, we have district registrars. But now what happens if you have an intergroup or central office that covers the same territory as your district? The one thing we can safely say about every intergroup in the United States and Canada is whatever geographic area they cover, there are districts inside there. That's just a fact. But what about the duplication of work? When is the last time an area or a district, we're talking about districts tonight, so I'll stick to district, has sat down with the local intergroup or central office and figured out who's doing what? We have intergroups with corrections committees and PI committees and CPC committees and treatment committees that are serving one or multiple districts that have the same committees. Now, I think it's interesting, just a little fact for AA around the world. For all the structures that were created after the United States and Canada, almost all of them, intergroups are part of the general service structure to get rid of this confusion so that they're a level, like a district, inside the general service area. Sometimes I see districts and intergroups that divide it they use old terms. I don't hear them a lot anymore. But I used to hear people say, well, the intergroup does the wet work and the district or the area does the dry work. So what does that mean? What does that mean? I can tell you in a couple of areas that might still be set up like this. It might mean this. Let's use a couple of the committees as an example. It might mean that as far as bringing meetings into correctional facilities or into treatment centers, that the intergroup handles that on the wet side, dealing with new people. The district deals with informing people about what corrections and treatment do and CPC and public information. But it's not the same in any place at all. It's not the same. Districts used to be super, super, super important in the structure. I'm not saying they are, but in certain places, they've kind of lost their empowerment. I know there's a couple of people on here who've been in service longer than I have and been around. If you look at a lot of guidelines to stand for delegate in your areas, you will often see that one of the requirements is you have to have been a D.C.M. Now, today, in AA today, what are the chances that a D.C.M. would get elected delegate or alternate delegate? I've been to a lot of election assemblies in the last 30 years. I would tell you like 0.0. Every once in a while, maybe something uncommon happens. But we used to not have all of the positions we have today. Today, the areas are filled. It's like the dais is like the movie, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, right? It's like 20 people on the dais, right? We have registrars. We have different types of secretaries. We have recording. We have corresponding. We now have, it used to be a long time ago that the area chair in a lot of places was the alternate delegate. That is not the case pretty much everywhere now. The alternate delegate, it's his own position. Now, in the last 15 years, we've seen the invention of the alternate area chair. The last 20 years, we used to not have alternate area chairs, but now we have them everywhere. We used to not have alternate treasurers. We have them. We now have alternate secretaries. Even if we have two different kinds of secretary, we have an alternate secretary for each kind. So now what has happened is some people would tell you, unless you've been an area officer, you shouldn't run for delegate or alternate delegate. And I'm telling you, that used to not be the case 40 years ago. 40 years ago, it was very common for a district chair, a D.C.M., to stand for alternate delegate or delegate. And that's why the reason you had to be a D.C.M., because that's how important that position was. I would also say that you have to look at not only how your district is structured, but how is your district meeting? Again, I'm not here to enter in the virtual versus hybrid versus in person. That's questions for your district, not me. But what about the date, day of the week, and time that your district meets? Is it the same thing as 50 years ago or 40 years ago or 30 years ago? Have you never looked at, wow, maybe that doesn't work in 2025? But it's okay to look at that kind of change. There are some districts that meet online now, even if they're in-person groups. There are some districts that every other meeting is virtual. Here's another thing I would point out to you. And again, I would ask you to talk to someone who was in service 40 years ago. We have a lot more service meetings than we used to. I'm not saying all of them are bad. I might be a fan of the book Death by Meeting in the business world, because what happens if you have a district meeting? Somebody just called me about this. They said, Billy, I'm getting complaints that people don't feel like we do anything at our district meeting. We just get together for the purpose of getting together. That's not going to build people wanting to be involved. You have to take a hard look at that as to why are you meeting and what are you there to accomplish? And is your district structure made for today? Do you need all the positions that you have? Area committees are a lot more active today than they used to be. No doubt about it. We were supposed to be a decentralized society. But when you look at corrections and treatment and public information and cooperating with the professional community, a lot of area committees have taken over a lot of the work that districts used to do. Now, some of that happened because districts didn't have enough people. So someone had to do the work. But my experience in AA is if someone's doing the work for you, you're not just going to say, I'll do it. Like, is your district really serving your geographic boundary or your linguistic boundary if you're a linguistic district? Like, when's the last time you really thought about what's not being done in our district? Are people talking to professionals? Are people doing PI commitments, public information commitments? Are people talking to treatment professionals? Are we making sure that the meetings we bring into facilities are AA meetings? Because that's all we can bring in. We can't bring in anything else. That's all we do. You know, when it says, what does it mean to be a D.C.M? I love that because, first of all, it doesn't have a question mark at the end of it, which I wonder why. Like, is that the only answer? What it means to be a D.C.M? What is it, what it means to be a D.C.M? I'm not sure because it means different things in every area. In the service manual, it says, while the GSR is the voice of a group, the D.C.M is the voice of a district. The district needs a leader. The GSRs will look for the D.C.M for guidance on being GSRs and serving the groups. They will look to the D.C.M to lead on forming the agenda for district activities, but we have alternate D.C.Ms too. But in my district, there's, I don't know, I'm trying to count how many sub-districts, but there's over 50 D.C.Ms. So those D.C.Ms are not the leaders. They're just a D.C.M for a sub-district who gets a vote in assembly. But sub-districts don't get together to meet. Here's the other thing I want to talk about the district. It's not the area's job to tell the district what to do. It's the district's job to tell the area what to do. Sometimes I see, well, we got a problem in this district. We're going to have to send out the area chair or the delegate. Well, I would tell you that it's the D.C.M's job to go to an assembly if there's a problem in the area. If the delegate or the area chair wants to share experience, that's one thing. But areas have to be very careful of telling districts how to operate because districts are above them on the upside down triangle, not below. Last week, 2 weeks ago, we spent a lot of time on the January 1st date because it's a pet peeve of mine in the service manual. Like I said to the chair of the Report and Charter Conference Committee after that meeting, I talked to him and said, like, Your committee is going to have to take a look at this description of the GSR in this service manual, and they're going to have to do the same thing for the D.C.M. So you get elected D.C.M. and you start on January 1st. If you're lucky, you have a district meeting in January and February. If you're in every other month, it's either January or February. But just think about that. You have a 1, 2, 3 district meetings at best, sometimes 2, before the General Service Conference. Because the D.C.Ms get their own vote on conference agenda items. Or if your area doesn't have a vote, they get to exchange ideas with the delegate when you review agenda items. Every area does it different. But how does the district D.C.Ms get informed on all the agenda items? And why doesn't it say in the service manual with a big, like, bold letter, just letting you know in like 16 weeks will be the General Service Conference. You have 1 or 2 district meetings to maybe talk about agenda items with your GSRs. And so this is stuff that we really need to be talking about inside the districts. We don't need to change the service manual per se. I mean, I would love if they put a couple of new things in there. But that doesn't mean that you can't take good ideas of your own and insert them into how your district operates. It seems that service sponsorship has taken over the world. Again, in the D.C.M. chapter, the service sponsor, it says, experience in the fellowship that a service sponsor is highly recommended to those newly elected D.C.Ms who do not already have one. See the section, the service sponsor, in chapter 1. I don't know about that. Most GSRs or D.C.Ms I run into are between 2 and 5 years sober. Most, not all, but a lot. Do they really need another sponsor? What about if they don't want another sponsor? I'm not saying a service sponsor is a bad idea, but what you need is somebody who did the job, who really did the job, not somebody who just served for 2 years. You need somebody who really got down in the trenches and did the job. There's also a financial aspect to districts. And I'm not here to argue about what your group's pie chart should be or how you make contributions. But if we were to divide up the area's service entities below the group level, you have districts, you have areas, you have intergroups, and you have the General Service Board. That's 4 at best. And the district, if it keeps electing people or creating new positions, we shouldn't have a position that we can't fund. Like, we should have enough inside our budget. If we ask someone to do service, their own personal economic condition shouldn't depend on doing that service. So when we start creating all these new positions, does it fit into the district budget? Another role of a district D.C.M. or district committee chair is maybe assisting groups with problems that come up from time to time. But here's another kind of, I don't think controversial, but something to think about. If you're the D.C.M., do you serve the groups or the meetings? I would tell you by the service manual, the groups. That's who you serve. And I would also tell you this, if you're not invited to come share experience on a problem, then you're not invited and probably shouldn't attend. It pretty much goes in the none of your business category. I sometimes hear, Billy, I heard this group is doing this. Okay. I mean, I've said it before. If somebody in AA calls me and says, you're not going to believe this, I tell them, you're wrong. I'll believe anything you tell me. Like nothing is going to shock me. But it's not our business to insert ourselves where we're not invited. One of the things to really look at, and I know this is a common problem in districts today, is you know that I love the percentages of the General Service Conference, that it's over 66% delegates representing the groups, and the rest is the trustees, directors, and staff. And I've pointed out before that at a lot of assemblies, it doesn't seem to be more than 66% of GSRs or even GSRs and D.C.Ms. It seems we've created so many positions that have voting ability that the group's kind of authority has been diminished, but nowhere is this more apparent than at the district. When a district meeting has like maybe 15 people at it, and 8 of them have district positions that they can vote, and only 7 are GSRs representing the group. Is that really the conscience of the groups? Or have we just created a lot of positions? And again, I go back to, we should only create a position when we need it, not just because we want to have it. There should be a definite need. You know, the original AA service committee had 2 people. That's it. And from there, it grew from Bill and Bob. But we don't create district or new committees just because we want to like make rules and have boundaries. We create committees because there's more work to be done, which is the same for creating positions. We shouldn't create new positions just because we want to say that we have a treatment chair or a PI chair. Maybe in some districts, those jobs could be combined. Maybe one person doesn't need to handle each job. Again, that's for your district to figure out. You know, it says in the service manual, regularly hold district meetings, regularly attend area assemblies, reach out to groups in the districts that don't have GSRs, organize workshops, bring tradition problems to the delegate, help GSRs become acquainted with the service manual, alert the district GSRs to new literature, assist the delegate in obtaining group contract information for AA regional directories. They don't even exist anymore. In many areas, D.C.Ms attend area committee meetings, so that becomes a challenge. Not all areas have an area committee. Some areas really utilize the area committee. The area committee meets more often, maybe every month or every other month, and deals with routine business and is made up of the D.C.Ms and the area officers. Some areas, though, don't have an area committee. They have D.C.Ms, but they don't have an area committee. They only do business inside an area. No, there's no other place for routine business to be dealt with. You know, and when I look at to the newly elected D.C.M, just think about how that's phrased. To the newly elected D.C.M, it's like, dear Billy, you're a new D.C.M. It doesn't say anything like, welcome. The most important meeting in the service structure is happening in 4 months. You have basically 12 weeks to get all your groups in your district ready for the General Service Conference. It's really 8 weeks because for your first 6 weeks, there's no final agenda for the General Service Conference or background information. Nowhere in duties and responsibilities Does it mention final conference agenda or background? And explaining what those are to new GSRs. I would tell anyone today that's a district chair or a D.C.M. chairing a district meeting, you might have your scheduled district meetings, but you should probably in January and February, especially being able to use Zoom, have a couple of optional meetings that you invite people to. Explain to the GSRs what is the final conference agenda. Explain to them how do things get on the final conference agenda. Explain to them you're going to start hearing this background word. What is background? And how does it look? And how is it distributed? And that's another problem, because in all 93 areas, there are different ways of distributing the background, from very openly sharing to whoever wants it, to very restrictively only giving it to certain people. I'm not here to argue which is the right thing tonight, but you should be explaining that to new GSRs. They have to know. Now, what about if you're a new D.C.M. and you don't know? What about if you just finished 2 years as a GSR, you don't feel like you got a lot of information, you went to the assembly before the conference, but you thought it was over your head? Well, have 1 or 2 meetings on Zoom as optional and invite somebody who knows. Invite a past delegate, invite a past D.C.M., invite somebody. My message here is that I'm not here to take a position on virtual district meetings or area assemblies or hybrid. What I am here to take a position on is this technology allows us to have all kinds of, it says right here, organize workshops, sharing sessions, or service activities. Why couldn't you be a D.C.M. and have a workshop on Zoom about how does something get on the conference agenda? How does the final conference agenda get approved, and when does it get sent out? Who puts together this background? What is background? All of these things are such amazing learning opportunities that we now have you don't have to say, you know what, on the next week at St. Mark's, where we usually meet, we're going to have a meeting on background, because people don't have that kind of time to have another meeting in their life. But that's the power of this technology, is to educate and inform and share experience. I see some districts and areas that are taking advantage of it and others that are not. I can tell you, as someone who has been going to assemblies as a past delegate for 12, 20 something years, 24 years. I've been going to assemblies as a past delegate. I've been going to assemblies as a past trustee for 8 years. I can tell you, a GSR in the middle of their term or in the second year, I am amazed by the questions that they sometimes ask me. And they're like, I don't know where to get this information. I've read the service manual. I don't see it in there. At the district meeting and the assembly. And so let me throw out another kind of, just passing on some good ideas I've seen from around the US and Canada. Maybe if your district meeting meets at a particular time, maybe before or after, you could have a service manual study. If your area has an assembly, and maybe you have somebody speaking on the concepts or somebody speaking on the warranties, or I wish we would talk about the traditions at more assemblies. But I really wish that all assemblies had some kind of GSR boot camp, some kind of district chair D.C.M. boot camp, just for an hour at each one, where people could really bring their questions and they could really get answers. Because when you think about 24 months as a GSR or a D.C.M, it is not a long time. By the time your delegate goes to the first General Service Conference, when you get elected a D.C.M, by the time they come back in May and do their report back, you're already you already have gone through 1/4 of the 24 months. You only have 3/4 left, not 3 yearly quarters, but 3/4 of 24 months. And it's so hard for people to get this information. It says also that each GSR has a vote on district matters and in district elections. Depending on the district, the D.C.M and alternate D.C.M may or may not be able to vote. And then it has the one the trouble that I was talking about. Some districts form standing committees or ad hoc committees to address specific tasks. Depending on the district and type of committee, the committee chairs may be elected by the district or appointed by the D.C.M. Group conscience determines who may or may not be able to vote. And then it talks about district treasurer, district secretary, committee chairs. And then some districts let GSRs hold those positions. Some districts do not. So we've created a whole new level of service. Instead of going from D.C.M or GSR to district chair or D.C.M, sometimes inside the district, the public information chair or the corrections chair is its own position. You don't have to be a D.C.M or a GSR. Just think about what I've said over the last 35, 40 minutes, how confusing all of that is. That's why my message is you have to get your area guidelines and your district guidelines or handbook. You have to figure out what is your job inside your district, and then what's your job as a D.C.M inside your area. And what do you need to do to get that done? And it's hard enough being a new D.C.M, but if one of your job, you have to learn that job and teach all the new GSRs what their job is, that is a lot of work. So you have to prioritize. For me, I think the groups and the district exercising their Concept 1 authority at the General Service Conference is the most important responsibility of a GSR or a D.C.M. Most important. Secondary responsibility is that geographic area. But listen, a lot of you are very involved in service. If our structure is working so well, why do every April people like us get phone calls where people say, I can't believe they did this. I can't believe they voted on that. We all know that we're missing a lot of people. We all know that service has become like, I got to say this, service is okay to be fun, and it should be directly connected to carrying the life-saving message. What kills service or morale for service is people constantly telling people, oh, it's so boring. Nothing they talk about is important. We need to reverse that message. We need to have DCMs getting out to groups that don't have a GSR saying, hey, wait a minute. Last year, this is what the General Service Conference voted on. And right now, I'm not judging your group. You can choose to ignore it. But right now, your group has no say in what's going on in AA. None at all. That's what group members need to hear. Some of you may have known at some point last year, I went through the original service manual, which is called the Third Legacy Manual. I love the Third Legacy Manual because the structure was way less complicated, way less. And it wasn't a newcomer who went to the bathroom who got elected GSR. It was one of the most experienced members of the group. It was one of the most passionate, dedicated members of the group. It was considered an honor to be the GSR. Sometimes now people look at, they don't even some places I attend now, like I can only do it one by one. But when I see people's reaction, even my own GSR last year at one of my business meetings said, oh, I went to the GSR meeting and nothing really important happened. Well, if that's what everybody hears, who's going to want to be the GSR? And if that's what the group hears, we don't need everybody to be a GSR, but we need people to support the need for a GSR. And the same thing with a D.C.M. You know, I laugh now, and I know there's a couple of people in here who've been involved as long as or longer than me. But you know that line in the concepts where it talks about the little known trustees, that people at the groups or the districts or even the areas, they could not name the name of most trustees or all the trustees or most people, not even one. That used to not be the case for the D.C.M. or district chair. It was very different than the trustees. 40, 50 years ago, people knew who their D.C.M. was, who their district chair was, because that was so important for their little piece of AA geography. Now, linguistic districts are important. I didn't invent French, English, and Spanish being the three languages of our structure, okay? That was passed down to me. I do know, though, that if we made that decision, that people who speak French and Spanish should have the same ability to be a district chair or a D.C.M. that I have. We've created some linguistic districts, and they don't have a geographic boundary, most of them. Most of the time when we say linguistic district, most people get the first trivia question, right? What's the most common linguistic district? And that's Spanish. They never get what's the second most common, English. Because in Quebec, the English-speaking meetings have a geographic district, have a non-geographic linguistic district. Now, I still believe there's a Polish district in Chicago. But linguistic districts should not be like all out on an island. A D.C.M. of a linguistic district should have the same ability to become an area officer that a D.C.M. of any geographic district has. And a lot of times we'll spend money on trips, but not on translation. Whether it's at a meeting or at an assembly or a district meeting, I do not know if there's any ASL districts yet. I would be happy to hear if there was. But as of now, I'm not sure there is. There are ASL committees in certain areas. Sometimes it's part of the accessibilities committee, sometimes it's not American Sign Language. There are intergroups that have deaf access committees. But again, how is it possible? I mean, let's face it. The preamble was a pretty big deal, but the plain language big book even made the preamble look like a small deal. How is it possible that active groups did not know about the plain language big book? And, if you're a D.C.M. or you're passing on experience to a D.C.M., let me pass this on. Maybe there is an exciting topic on the General Service Conference agenda. You don't have to wait for the delegate to do something. If inside your district you think there's an agenda item that's really important, you could have a Zoom meeting about that agenda item. Just think about that. Think about if during the plain language discussion, somebody handed out flyers at meetings, groups, hung in the local clubhouse where some groups meet. The D.C.M. is going to have a special sharing session on the plain language big book. Because that's the other thing. If your job is to get groups that don't have GSRs to have GSRs, you got to break down the walls of communication. You can't just communicate through the groups. You have to be out and about in your AA community. And people ask me about district picnics and other stuff. I'm all for district picnics. You know why? Because if you can have an AA speaker and some food and not discuss guidelines, but just let the people know that this is being put on by the district, then people get a positive image of the district, that it's actually involved in carrying the message of Alcoholics Anonymous, that it is not just politics and business, all the things people say that are not true. But I've learned that perception is reality. Our job is not to break down reality. Our job is to break down perception. Perception versus reality in AA service, getting groups involved, is kind of like fancy versus real in resentments in the big book. If you talk to someone, most people would admit it's easier to deal with a real resentment. You know why? Because it's real. It's actually based on something real. You know what's really hard to deal with? A fancied one that you made up in your own mind that has no basis in reality. But that's what perception is. Our job, I think now at this day and age of our AA service structure, is to change the perception of service. Somewhere along the line, it got a bad rap. And we all know the participation percentages. So we need to change that. I'm going to go to some questions. Can a D.C.M. attend a group business meeting to do outreach? It doesn't matter if we give them the information if the GSRs don't share with the group. So listen, this is what I would say. If you're a D.C.M., sure, go to that group's business meeting, but talk to the chair before you participate. Talk to the chair of the group. Say, I'm the local D.C.M. I'd like to make an announcement. You know, it would be really good if you could get the local group to let you have 2 minutes at one of their meetings, not even a business meeting, to say hello on behalf of the district and to let them know what the district is up to. But of course, the person who asked that question, that is absolutely fine. Just be respectful. Can we add a reminder to consider local deaf access committees to the pie chart? Also, we have a deaf district now in Oregon. Glad to hear that. Also, they don't have an AA group pamphlet in ASL yet. Yeah, we definitely need we definitely need a group pamphlet in American Sign Language. So you can add anyone to the pie chart you want within reason. You might add H&I if you're in California or some other place where H&I is separate than general service, hospitals and institutions. You might add a deaf access committee. Of course, that's up for your group. I was a GSR in Bill W.'s backyard around 40 years ago. I'm guessing he means Westchester or New York. Whoever he or she wrote this. We sat around complaining that no one wanted to be a GSR and sat and read the tradition related to the month, getting nowhere. When I became D.C.M, I changed it to develop committees, CPC, PI, etc. We were 50 miles from GSO, and we would invite trustees to explain the committees as we developed them. We had people like David A. and Frank M. David A., past trustee at large from Texas, Frank M., past archivist from GSO. We turned that district from 5 groups to 59 groups and had to redistrict ourselves. That's awesome. And I love that story. And you know what I love the most about it? Out of the box thinking, not just doing what we've always done. In your local area, draw a line 50 miles, 100 miles around it, your district, your group. Inside there are lots of people who have served at different levels of service at the General Service Board or Grapevine or AAWS, or maybe they've been a past delegate or whatever. Bring those people in, take advantage of them, and let people know. People are going to come if it seems like it's going to be informative, educational, or exciting, or controversial. Controversial gets people too. Yep, somebody just said that they have a ASL district in Oregon, and I am really, really happy to hear that. Most people don't realize, and I didn't know until I learned it in service. People think, oh, just have subtitles. ASL is not English. Just want to let everyone know that. It's its own language. Do some deaf people read English? Yes. But is ASL English? No. It's its own standalone language. I would say, that person who wrote about bringing in people, like, I would do anything different. I would have, people say, oh, dances aren't AA. Okay. I don't know what to say to those people, except that in 1950, at the first international convention where they approved the traditions, there were a couple of dances. Okay. I don't know what to tell people that there were no dances, except that the 23rd Street Clubhouse in New York City had dances. So, people say, oh, it's bowling, it's dancing, it's a picnic, whatever. What is wrong with having a little fun and getting people together in fellowship and community? That's what they're starving for. Why did we make service like going to an SAT preparation course? Like the General Service Conference is the SATs, and we're going to send you to some SAT training course. It should not be like that. The district should be looked at as joining the AA community together, not just the GSRs. They got to come together to do the business of the district. But the district should be doing things to bring everybody together. This anti-fun, anti-fellowship thing that develops in service. I don't know where it came from, but it's not how AA started. Spaghetti dinners, eating meetings, all of these things. We were a very community focused in our own community, outside our community, getting the message out. But inside our fellowship was super important that we gathered together, and that was the district's purpose. Let's see this next question. I think young people have the right idea. They like to have fun, maybe to an extreme. Yeah, of course. But as my friend George once told a delegate that was really mad at young people because of their pool party and because of their late night ocean swimming after a big barn fire, my friend George said to this delegate, it's not just young people in AA, like all young people are going to do certain things. All young people have a tendency to be irresponsible. But yeah, what I wish is that more young people's committees would be more tightly tied to general service. That's what I wish. People say, oh, we need a YPA person voting at the area. I don't know. Not if your young person's meeting as a GSR. If your young person's meeting is entitled to a GSR, why do you need a special voter? But I do think they have the right idea regarding fellowship. I do think they have the right idea regarding scavenger hunts and raves and silent discos and God knows what else. Like those things bring people together. I know lots of people inside who have become, I'm talking about people who came up through young people's, who became delegates. Many of them went to their first young people AA something on a road trip with like 7 other lunatics with barely enough gas money, right? Like today, I'm dating myself, right? Today, I know it. It's the amount of vaping and energy drink drinking going on in those cars on the way to these young people's conferences must be through the roof, but God bless them. But do you know how many people I know who've told me that it was a dance or something else they went to? They weren't even involved in service. And that's what initially got them introduced. I just wish we would stop this kind of anti-fun attitude. How many groups do I think constitutes a linguistic district? I'm not sure. My area has 3 now or 2. Some areas have multiple, some areas have 1, but I think that's a decision for the area. We're definitely not a glum lot. And if you asked me sometimes, like, where do I feel like I see the most glum in AA? It's sometimes at a district meeting or an assembly. It's not on the firing lines with groups. It's not at the local clubhouse. It's not at the young people's AA thing. Like, we have to get rid of glum in service. That's what we need to do. So I'm counting on all of you to spread that message, because I'm telling you, it only takes one person to extinguish the flames of someone who's excited about service, who has a new idea, and they get shot down and they don't want to bring it up again. We need people, all of us out there, encouraging people to come, to have new ideas. Someone just sent me something. Let me just see what this says. Our delegate sends the PAIs proposed agenda items and background information out to the DCMs, and in turn, they're discussed at district and sent out to the GSRs, and discussed at their home groups business meeting in February. We have 58 groups in our district. Yeah, that's awesome. But when you think about the little amount of time that is between the middle of February and April to discuss those agenda items and to get feedback and to review background, that's why I'm saying we need to harness technology to really get it done and to really get the information out there. This thing that the delegate owns the background is insane. I don't know where that came from. Your district can review agenda items, can start the discussion, and really should be helping GSRs to understand. So with that, I will say that next week, we will do the area assembly and its committees. I'm just asking everyone to please get a hold of your area handbook or your area guidelines, or if in my area, your area current practice, whatever you call it, give it a read while you're reading the service manual, because there's so many different nuances in here. So we will close with the responsibility statement. I am responsible when anyone out there reaches out for help. I want the hand of AA always to be there. And for that, I am responsible. Have a good night, everyone. Stay safe. Have a great weekend. The weekend's over. Thanks.